In 1995, a movie nobody believed in was hiding secrets even its own cast didn't know. Contracts burned before shooting, actors nearly died, and one decision made in a Thai temple at 3 a.m. changed everything. These are 20 strange secrets hidden inside Mortal Kombat, and some of them the studio never wanted you to find. Secret number 1. Test screenings literally rewrote the fights you remember most. The Johnny Cage vs. Scorpion brawl that explodes from a peaceful forest into a bone-filled hellscape, and Liu Kang's brutal showdown with Reptile. These weren't always as long as you remember. Director Paul W.S. Anderson originally cut action for cost reasons, which happens all the time in Hollywood when budgets get tight. Then test audiences filled out their cards, and the feedback was basically the same thing over and over. They wanted more fights. The production actually went back for additional photography to extend those sequences, which is a big deal because reshoots cost serious money. Anderson later said those 2 fights were the most ambitious to pull off because they had to mix wire work with close combat choreography, and getting that balance right took multiple attempts. Without those audience cards demanding more action, the movie's best moments might have ended up on the cutting room floor. Number 2 takes us backstage before cameras even rolled. Sonya Blade was almost Cameron Diaz until a training injury changed everything. Diaz was riding high in 1995 after The Mask became a massive hit, and New Line executives saw her dailies and thought she'd be perfect for the role. She was cast, contracts were signed, and she started training for the intense fight sequences the role required. Then during one of those training sessions, she broke her wrist, and suddenly the production had a major problem with no Sonya and filming already scheduled to start. Bridgette Wilson got the call to replace her, and she flew in so fast she was basically learning choreography while they were setting up cameras. The Sonya vs. Kano fight got pushed to the very end of the shooting schedule just to give Wilson enough time to get the moves down. One broken bone during training completely changed who we think of as Sonya Blade today. Secret 3 might blow your mind if you've ever paused that opening scene. The Spielberg cameo rumor is sort of true, or at least it was supposed to be. Early in production, the filmmakers wanted Steven Spielberg to make a joke cameo as the frustrated director yelling at Johnny Cage on that cheesy movie set. Getting Spielberg would have been this perfect meta moment, a legendary director appearing in a scene making fun of bad action movies. Scheduling made it impossible, so the part went to actor Sandy Helberg, who absolutely nailed the energy they were going for. His look and mannerisms are so convincing that people have been debating whether it's actually Spielberg for almost 30 years now. If you've watched that scene thinking something feels off about whether that's really him, you picked up on the fact that it was meant to be someone much more famous. Number 4. Goro was a $1 million animatronic nightmare with a small army inside. This is where things get wild from a production standpoint. Before computer-generated creatures became the default option, Mortal Kombat took a massive practical effects gamble with the 4-armed Shokan Prince. Amalgamated Dynamics built this incredibly complex animatronic that cost around $1 million, which was a huge chunk of the total budget. Operating this thing required somewhere between 13 and 16 puppeteers and technicians, all working together to control different body parts. And even with all those people, it broke down constantly during filming. The performer actually inside the suit could only work in short bursts because the heat inside was unbearable and there wasn't enough oxygen flow. Anderson ended up having to completely rework how he shot every Goro scene to work around these mechanical limitations, and the character's total screen time got slashed compared to what the script originally called for. Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis from Amalgamated Dynamics were the ones physically making this creature work. Kevin Michael Richardson provided Goro's voice, and Frank Welker added those deep creature sounds that made him feel even more menacing. $1 million and a dozen highly skilled technicians just to bring one character to life for what ends up being maybe 5 or 6 minutes of actual film. Secret 5 reveals how the PG-13 rating didn't mean no fatalities. It meant the team had to get creative with how they showed violence. New Line desperately wanted that PG-13 to pull in younger audiences who were the core Mortal Kombat fanbase, but they also knew the movie would feel wrong without people dying. The creative team spent a lot of time working directly with the MPAA ratings board to figure out exactly where the line was between a hard PG-13 and getting slapped with an R rating that would have killed their box office. One result you can actually spot if you pay attention during a rewatch is that most of the on-screen deaths happen to non-human characters. That approach let them keep the violent spirit of the games while staying on the right side of the censors. You see plenty of brutal deaths for Outworld creatures, sorcerers, and various monsters, while deaths of human characters either happen more quickly or take place just off camera where you hear it but don't see the graphic details. Number 6. Those sweeping martial arts landscapes that make the movie feel epic aren't Hollywood sets. They're actual locations in Thailand. This decision made a massive difference in how the film looks and feels. Anderson shot on location across Thailand with its lush beaches, vine-covered ancient ruins, and temple architecture that's been standing for centuries. He's talked about how choosing real locations instead of building everything on a soundstage gave his first studio movie this expansive, expensive look that would have been impossible to fake convincingly on their budget. The production kept switching between these incredible natural environments, like that gorgeous beach where Liu Kang and Kitana have their sparring session, and purpose-built sets such as Scorpion's Lair with all those skulls scattered around and the vertical pit arena that recreates the game stage. The combination of genuine ancient environments and fantasy construction creates this unique visual style where everything feels both grounded in reality and completely mythical at the same time. Secret 7 actually changed video game canon going forward. Kano's accent in this movie literally rewrote how the character appears in the franchise. In the original Mortal Kombat arcade games, Kano's background wasn't Australian at all. Trevor Goddard played him in the 1995 film using what he thought was a rough Cockney accent, but American audiences kept hearing it as Australian instead. His portrayal connected with fans so strongly that when the game developers started working on new titles and other Mortal Kombat media, they just went with Australian Kano as the official version of the character. By the time Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe came out years later, nobody even questioned that Kano should sound like he's from Down Under. The movie didn't just adapt what was in the games, it actually influenced the source material and permanently changed how millions of people understand this character. Number 8. Scorpion still shouts "Get over here" in that iconic voice, and it's actually Ed Boon doing it. Ed Boon, who co-created Mortal Kombat with John Tobias, provided Scorpion's signature taunts in the original arcade games where most of us first heard them. When the filmmakers needed that same audio for the movie, they went straight to the source and got Boon to record it again. So when Johnny Cage is fighting Scorpion and you hear that unmistakable bark, it's coming from the exact same person who created the character's voice in the games that started everything. Chris Casamassa handled all the physical performance and fight choreography as Scorpion. But Boon's audio contribution creates this direct connection between the arcade experience and what's happening on screen. Secret 9. The theme song everyone associates with this movie wasn't actually written for it, and the story behind that famous shout is pretty interesting. Mortal Kombat by the Immortals, which is officially called Techno Syndrome, already existed before anyone started filming. The track first showed up on an album called Mortal Kombat, the album that came out in 1994, and that incredibly recognizable Mortal Kombat shout you hear in the song was sampled directly from one of Midway's Mortal Monday television commercials. The movie licensed a version of the track for the film and the soundtrack, and having it blast during key moments helped cement it as the franchise's unofficial anthem that still gets used today. The song's origins are this perfect mix of early 90s video game marketing energy and Belgian techno production, which somehow ended up being exactly what the movie needed. Number 10. That soundtrack made chart history most video game movies never even come close to touching. The Mortal Kombat original motion picture soundtrack wasn't just popular with fans leaving the theater, it became a genuine mainstream success. The album peaked at number 10 on the Billboard 200 in the fall of 1995 and stayed on the charts for weeks, which was basically unheard of for a video game movie soundtrack back then. Most game adaptations were lucky if their soundtracks sold at all, but this one was competing with major artists and winning. The success proved that the movie's aggressive electronic sound wasn't just working in the theater, it was connecting with a much wider audience who wanted to take that energy home with them. Secret 11. Hollywood stunt legend. Patty Johnson transformed a cast of mostly non-martial artists into convincing fighters. If you watch the movie and think the combat looks surprisingly sharp, considering most of these actors didn't have extensive martial arts backgrounds, you should thank Patty Johnson. He's the stunt and fight coordinator who made his name on The Karate Kid and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he brought all that experience to Mortal Kombat's training program. Johnson put the actors through intensive preparation to get them delivering clean, camera-ready choreography that would hold up in wide shots and close-ups. Anderson has talked in interviews about how impressed he was watching performers like Linden Ashby, who plays Johnny Cage, transform into believable screen fighters under Johnson's demanding training regimen. Johnson understood how to make actors look like they'd been studying martial arts for years, when really they'd only had a few months of intensive coaching. Number 12 goes even deeper into the fights. Robin Shou didn't just star in the movie, he actively helped shape how the action looks. Liu Kang actor Robin Shou showed up to production with real Hong Kong stunt experience from working in the industry there, and he ended up getting an official credit as fight choreographer for additional sequences. Shou kept pushing Anderson and the stunt team to include wire-assisted moments and bring in that kinetic Hong Kong-flavored rhythm that American action movies weren't really doing yet in the mid-90s. Anderson described Shou's creative input as one of the things that made the movie's action feel fresh compared to other films coming out at the time. Mortal Kombat doesn't go full Hong Kong wire-fu for every fight, but those flourishes you notice, like the bicycle kick sequences and aerial punctuation where fighters hang in the air just a beat longer than physics would normally allow, those are there because Shou fought to include them. Secret 13. The injuries on set were absolutely real and sometimes pretty serious. Linden Ashby suffered a bruised kidney during the scorpion fight sequence, which is an extremely painful injury that can take weeks to fully heal. Bridgette Wilson dislocated her shoulder during one of her fight scenes, and after getting it reset by the on-set medic, she just came back and kept filming. Robin Shou had it worse during the reptile sequence when he took a bad landing against a stone pillar and fractured 2 ribs. He didn't even go to the hospital right away. He kept working through the pain for days before finally getting it checked out because the production schedule was so tight. The movie might be rated PG-13 and look relatively safe on screen, but the physical punishment the actors put themselves through to sell those fights was intense and sometimes dangerous. Number 14 reveals a choice Christopher Lambert made that gave Raiden actual presence in the film. Anderson has told this story in several interviews about how the original budget-saving plan was to shoot all of Lambert's close-ups in Los Angeles, and then use a body double for wide shots in Thailand, then cut it all together in editing and hope nobody noticed. Lambert completely refused when he heard about this approach, telling Anderson directly that doing it that way would compromise the quality of the movie. He insisted on traveling to location and doing all his own scenes in Thailand, so everything would match properly on camera. You can actually see the difference this made when you watch the film. Raiden is genuinely there in those sweeping Thai exteriors interacting with the environment, and it gives the God of Thunder this physical, tactile presence instead of feeling like he was pasted in during post-production. Secret 15. Scorpion's classic spear attack became something completely different on film, and it's still one of the most argued about changes. In the games, Scorpion throws what's basically a rope dart or a kunai attached to a chain. In the movie, that attack transforms into this snake-like living organism that shoots out of his palm and actively hunts down its target like it has a mind of its own. The choice to make it a creature instead of a weapon really divided fans when the movie came out. Some people thought it was a creative way to make the move more visually interesting for cinema, while others felt like it was changing things just for the sake of being different from the games. However you feel about the living spear, it's this perfect time capsule of mid-90s. It's effects work where filmmakers were experimenting with blending practical puppetry and early computer graphics to create images that would look cool and slightly unsettling at the same time. Number 16. That massive emperor head at the end belongs to Shao Kahn, and the voice is legendary Frank Welker. The giant face that smashes through the celebration and threatens everyone with that deep growl of "You weak, pathetic fools" belongs to the series' big bad, Shao Kahn. Frank Welker provided that menacing voice, and if you know anything about voice acting, you know Welker is an absolute legend in the industry. He's the voice of Fred from Scooby-Doo, Megatron from Transformers, and literally hundreds of other characters and creature sounds across decades of film and television. Welker also created various creature vocalizations throughout Mortal Kombat, including sounds for Reptile and Goro, but his brief appearance as Shao Kahn at the very end was specifically meant to set up the sequel and establish this looming threat the heroes would have to face next time. Secret 17 is hidden in the visuals if you know what to look for. Mortal Kombat includes a homage to the pit stage from the games, and test audiences actually recognized it. Anderson mentioned in an interview that during one of the early test screenings, he could hear a fan in the audience audibly react when they spotted the film's recreation of the pit, which was exactly the kind of knowing recognition the filmmakers were hoping to get from people who played the games. The production made a conscious decision to sprinkle in these visual references and callbacks, rather than trying to rigidly recreate every single arena and location from the games. Finding organic ways to include things like the pit into the movie's overall visual language helped convince the hardcore fans that the people making this actually understood and respected the source material, instead of just slapping the Mortal Kombat name on a generic martial arts film. Number 18. The box office run turned into a genuine phenomenon that changed how Hollywood looked at video game movies. When Mortal Kombat opened on August 18, 1995, it pulled in $23.3 million in its opening weekend, which was strong, but not record-breaking. What made it special was that it stayed at number 1 for 3 straight weeks, beating out every other new release that tried to knock it off the top spot. That kind of sustained box office dominance was pretty rare for any movie, let alone a video game adaptation when the genre had such a terrible track record. The film eventually earned around $122 million worldwide, working from a production budget estimated between $18 and $20 million, which made it one of the most profitable releases of 1995. That PG-13 rating turned out to be the right call, because it let younger fans who were the core Mortal Kombat demographic actually buy tickets. And the 3-week reign at number 1 proved to Hollywood studios that game movies could compete with everything else in theaters if you made them the right way. Secret 19. Reptile on screen is actually 2 completely different performances edited together. When Liu Kang has his climactic battle with Reptile, what you're watching is this hybrid creation that required multiple techniques. Keith Cook performed all the martial arts as Reptile in his human ninja form, delivering the fast-paced choreography that makes that fight sequence so memorable. The lizard creature version of Reptile is computer-generated imagery, and then Frank Welker came in to add all those snarls, hisses, and inhuman sounds that make the character feel genuinely monstrous. This creature transforms into a human approach. Let the filmmakers have it both ways. They could show off impressive martial arts choreography while also staying true to the character's monstrous origins from the arcade games, where Reptile was this hidden boss fight that looked completely different from the regular ninjas. Number 20 brings everything full circle. Johnny Cage's most quoted line in the entire movie wasn't in the script at all. Those were $500 sunglasses came directly from Linden Ashby on the day of filming. Anderson encouraged his cast to improvise jokes and add little character moments whenever they felt inspired, which is exactly the kind of creative freedom that can make scenes feel more alive and spontaneous. Cage's cocky one-liner, delivered with perfect timing right before he pulls off that surprise nut punch on Goro, made it into the final cut and has been quoted by fans for almost 30 years now. That single improvised joke has been referenced in later Mortal Kombat games, shows up constantly in fan discussions, and basically defined how people think about Johnny Cage's personality. It captures everything the movie does well, balancing serious martial arts action with this self-aware, playful sense of humor that knows exactly when to break the tension. Mortal Kombat belonged to everyone who made it part of their childhood, the generation that wore out VHS tapes rewinding favorite fights. Don't forget to leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed our 20 strange secrets from this movie. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.